Today we're interviewing spiritual medium Avril Griffiths, and we're going to talk about spiritual mediumship. So, welcome to my channel.
Hi.
And so, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Okay, so I'm 52 now. For as long as I can remember, I've always been able to see spirit, so it's never been a surprise to me. My main guide is my great-grand's third great uncle. He did go by the name William, but colloquially known as Red, because even though they were Native American, he had quite red hair. He was a cowboy, literally. He thinks he's hilarious. He's really not. So he's been my guide for as long as I can remember. The first time he really interacted with me, I was probably about 5. My nana used to work in Cadbury's in Morton on the Wirral. It was the biggest chocolate site going then. So because she worked there was always a bag of chocolate in the sideboard. And I remember sneaking in to go and pinch some. And this cowboy poked his head round the kitchen door and went, "Your gran will have your guts for garters if she catches you." And thinking, how does he know? I don't remember not understanding that apart from me, it was only ever my gran that would watch him. And my sister, when she was young, excuse me, but she seemed to go the other way as we got a bit older, whereas I kept it. But then my gran worked with me. I think I was the only one out of the grandkids she actually really liked, because she was Native American born, and she married a guy called James Lucas over here on the Wirral. Your English people, if the bikers will have heard of the Tap on the Wirral, he built that pub. It's well known because she was of Native American descent. We know the tribe had freed slaves at one point, so she looks more like you than me, but I look more like my gran. Worked that one out. A lot of people thought she was the help, so she got really pissed off because at the end of the day, she was the lady of the house. That was her house. And she was a highly educated lady. So she started one of the first spiritualist churches in Liverpool in 1921.
Wow.
So she taught me. We lost her and my nan physically in a car crash, unfortunately. I think I was 8 and 9. So it was around about this time of year. But we won't go into that. That's neither here nor there. My gran left it a couple of years and picked up where she left off, because by then I was well versed with working with spirit. I was the weird kid in school, because in my infant and junior school, it was a tiny, tiny village school that had been built in the 1700s. The church that the school is attached to is mentioned in the Doomsday Book. So, 1066, really old. So there were a lot of children in the school that I could see that the other kids couldn't. And it never occurred to me that it was odd that they would vanish into a cupboard. And we think now, as an adult, we've gone back and looked through the history. We know there were 2 boys that were sent away from here into North Wales during the war. And apparently they got into an accident I think it was at Bala Lake, and drowned. So we think now the kids that I used to see in the school were those 2 boys. I've got no way in knowing, because about 5 years ago, they turned that school into flats, which is such a shame because it's a listed building, highly active. So a bit weird in junior school. High school, well, hormones got in the way.
Okay.
Life is for living, but my first real...
Let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you real quick. Let's go back to Red. Can you tell us a little bit more about him or her?
Him. Okay, William. Yeah. So William Roundtree. Do you want to know about what his life was before he became my guide, or since?
Oh, well, yeah, that would be good.
Okay, so the tribe were farming, nomadic farmers, so they had a 3-year cycle. Obviously, because they leave land to go fallow. And Red was a cattle rancher, for want of a better word, with the tribe. He was crossing a brook and came unstuck, fell off his horse, cut his leg, stagnant water, bye-bye Red. So from that point on, he worked with the tribe from what we know, from what we can gather, we don't work with anyone from our soul family or our bloodline that is remembered in our lifetime. So Red would have been silent except for the medicine until everyone that knew him physically had gone to spirit. And then that's when they come back and they guide us. So at some point in the wheel, you've been your guide's guide and they've been yours. It's like we take it in turns. That's how he explained it to me. Anyway, and sometimes your guide may not be someone that you can trace through your family tree because your soul family isn't always the family you're born into. But that's something you understand on a deeper level when people stop looking at stereotypes, backgrounds, ethnicities, taste, fashion sense, sex. Get rid of all that and put us back to basic. That's what we work with. When you can get to that level, it's so easy. It is just so easy to stay attached. People forget. You can see aura. I can see aura. Everybody during the summer sees aura in a heat haze. But how often do people stop to look just above the top of other people's heads anymore? You let your eyes relax and you can see. So that was probably my first lesson.
Wow.
Learning to see without seeing. Very early on, my gran used to say, clean your teeth with salt and ash and not with toothpaste. And she used to do this all the time. Now we know why, because fluoride will calcify the pineal gland, which is your third eye. It's what we work with. So my first real, I'm going to say job as a spiritual medium, if you like, I was probably about 14, 15. I was walking up Eastern Rake Road to go home to my mum's about 9 o'clock at night. And there was a car crash round the corner from where I was. You're going back to the mid 80s then, so there were no mobile phones. There were a couple of phone boxes, but not on that road, funnily enough. I ran back round the corner to see, and it was a fatal accident. So people come out the houses and the adults all dealt with it. But as I turned around to walk back home as a kid, more scared that I was going to get into trouble with my mum for being late than waiting to speak to the police. You know, as I started walking, a woman started walking alongside me and she was chunnering about her knitting. And to this day, I've still got a really vivid mental image of a green knitting bag with the bamboo frame and orange, pinky orange wool sticking out of it, because that was the image she gave me. She didn't know that she'd been moved to spirit in the accident. She was just driving home thinking about going to her knitting class and walked all the way home with me. So it was only when my mum opened the front door, saw the woman stood next to me, that I realised, you've been lying to me your life. My mum's terrified of the gift, but she saw her too. Because she got me in the car, the woman in the car, and drove us back to the accident and said to the woman, you've got to go. You've got to go with the ambulance. So from that point on, my mum's way of dealing with it was to leave me books written by, I'll use the term very loosely, medium called Doris Stokes. I don't know whether you'll have heard of her. No, before your time. She was before my time. She grew up with Maggie Thatcher. I think she started off with a gift, but I think a lot of her books were pure fabrication. But my mum started me with those books, and then when I was about 15, my gran reappeared. So from that point on, my first mess around with my gift was during the Silver Duke of Edinburgh's Awards scheme. We were on an expedition hiking, and we were at the top of Nant Peris in the Snowdon Range in an electric storm. So the teachers had said, the teachers will be in the pub at that end that doesn't have a log fire. You're staying in the farm barn. We had to put the tents in the barn because, you know, thunder and lightning in the clouds. But the pub that side of the farm's got a fire. Basically, go and sit in front of the fire to get dry. So all the older kids us toddled off, gets there, gets dry, gets back in our tents, and we can hear people milling round because the tents are up, but we're in a barn. And Angie says to me, "Do you want to get out and go and see what's going on?" And I said, "No." And I think we were playing patience. So I shouted at him, moved the flap of the tent, went, "Who wants the cards reading?" As you do, see the smile on your face says it all, you've done it yourself. So everyone piles round the front of our tent, one of the old canvas ones too, you know, lean on it, you've had it. And for the love of God, I sat there just babbling away like I am now. The whole point of the Duke of Edinburgh, when you go out on your expedition, is you don't know anyone else apart from the people in your team, because it's all about surviving, you know. And so I knew nothing. Load of kids from London, load of kids from Liverpool. Yes, to the educated ear, I'm not a Scouser. And I realised everyone had just shut up. You know, you just stop and you realise everyone's looking at you, and I thought, right, I've made an arse of myself. And then one of the lads, like proper, one of the big grok lads that used to do all my cycling and everything with, just burst into tears. I didn't even know I'd been talking to him. Because what had happened was, my gran had gone, "I'm going to jump in here." So my gran helped me talk. Obviously, you know yourself, when you're working with cards, it's more like psychometry. It's just a guide. So, yeah, we scared a lot of people that day. And I think from that point on, I realised that was where my work lies. And no matter what I've done with my life I've run pubs, I've cut hair, I'm a beauty therapist, I'm always drawn back to this. People find me, the spirit finds me, the police find me. I don't advertise, I don't need to. So last year, people in the UK will possibly be aware. So there was a couple of shootings in Liverpool and on the Wirral last year. We think they were connected. I'm also working on a cold murder case in Prescott at the moment, so I can't mention that one. But we know there's a connection. That's all I can say at the moment in regards to that, for obvious reasons. However, what I can tell you is, while I was sat talking with one of the serious crime Merseyside police, I mentioned somebody that works within the police that isn't uniformed, because I said to him, "Do you have people that do serious things on computers that aren't police?" And he sort of looked at me and he said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, there's an other woman by the name of that is feeding the information to," and I gave him a name of a gang. And I said, "And they're involved in human trafficking," and his face at the deck. Now, I don't know anything about anything else other than that woman, because the policeman phoned me back and then it come up on the news 2 days later. She was arrested for feeding all the information to the gang.
Wow. That's incredible.
As you well know, even though when we walk into a court of law, whatever faith we follow, we all pray to the same God. We all swear an oath to speak the truth to our boss, but they'll still look for something that they can use physically in order to be able to go to court. The cold case I'm working on, or one of them I'm working on, we found the murder weapon. We also found a weapon involved in another crime, a set of keys for another crime. And because I say what Red tells me as soon as he tells me, they found 16 grand all wrapped up in cling film in a load of nettles in a tree. I mean, they had to get in there and get hurt, and, you know, people had to come with things to cut the nettles down and whatnot, because it was, you know, briars and bracken like my height, and wild garlic, because we all stunk of garlic for days after. But yeah, I could have gone mad at Red for that. Why don't you tell me the money was there? We could have done with it. But no, proceeds of crime, obviously. That's a little bit of a funny one, though, because we just sat in the grass in this field. I'd already explained this field we are sat in. I've got to be careful because this case is ongoing. But before I'd even met the family, I'd explained how the person that was murdered was murdered. the thing that the person wanted me to say to one of their parents, because they'd all had an agreement that this thing had happened. What I will say is I could sing Blackadder. Blackadder goes forth. You'll have to find it, Nathan. You'll love it. Rowan Atkinson. So we found the murder weapon. We know who's been the person that needs to go to prison, for want of a better term. But we're still trying to find the link that the police can use physically, because walking into a court of law and saying, well, this spiritual medium described the house, described the field behind the house, told us where the murder weapon was, told us how he died. Did you do it? I didn't even know where I was going. The police took me.
Oh, wait a minute. They would suspect you, wouldn't you? Because you're the one guiding them. It's like,
I know, but in a court of law, the first thing I would be asked by another lawyer is, did you do it?
right.
Even though it has been proven time and time again, and believe you me, there is a lot of other spiritual mediums out there that I know that have worked with the police and been successful. Until the courts can recognise what we do is legit, we have to find the physical evidence, and that's what they go with. They don't tell them the spiritual medium got us here.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a jury sitting there and saying, so how did you find out about Mr. X? Well, we asked the spiritual medium to get in a police car, and we drove her to their family, and then she stood outside the house, told us where he was when he was murdered, how he got murdered, who he was with. We put her in a car, she directed us to where he was, and walked the pubs, and told us that the roadworks had changed. I'd never been there before. I'd go in completely blind.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's why I think they will be the first one they would suspect, because because you know all this information and you shouldn't know this information, but you do. So
I don't know where it comes from.
Exactly. But imagine I'm the detective and I'm like, how does this person know all the details
so much
we know?
When I mentioned the name that is involved with trafficking, I watched his aura flare massively. He froze, but he just looked at me and said, there is no way you would have known that. Mm-hmm. How? Did you just pull a name out of thin air? And I said, no. And the irony of it is, this particular surname can be spelt probably about 3 or 4 different ways, maybe more. It's not an English surname, but it is common. But it can be spelled quite a few different ways. And I said to the police, this is how it's spelled, which is different to all the other ways I've seen that name before. And I just got a nod, because they can't give me anything. They just want it off me. You know, so at that point, he got the EBGBs, and we went and got a glass of Coke in the pub, because it freaked everyone out a bit. But because I'd given them the information about the things, because where we were sat was where they found what they were looking for. So they had geophys in, people with looked like a bit like a whacker plate, but x-rays the ground, because of all the bracken where they'd hidden the things. Yeah. The only way I could explain it was I was looking at a massive garden with a wall. So I can see it now. It's about 16, 18 foot high. And I said, there's a door to get into the wall, but it's bricked up, but it's a rat run and people get in. And I know there's a bandstand behind me, but it's not used. All I can see is, I know opposite this garden is some woodlands, and then I can see somebody's drive with 2 pyramid posts. And I didn't even know where I was going. So that is where we were sat. And everything was as I'd seen it. From there, I took them to the road where I knew the murderer's family lived, because I'd already explained what I could see, because I could see this house. It's a terraced council house. It's on a main road. There's a metal handrail round the bend, obviously, to keep the pedestrians safe. Opposite where these houses are, there's been shops or something's been knocked down. There's bollards to stop travellers getting on there. It's gravelly and it's a mess, and there's lots of broken glass there. And there was planning permission, but they don't know what's happening because COVID happened. The field behind us, this house is shaped like a witch's hat. And at the point where it's all very overgrown and left for the bees is where you're going to find X. But you will find Y and Z in this walled garden that looks like a bandstand. So because no one had a clue what I was talking about, and this is the people that have lived there their entire lives, they said, where is it? And I said, well, person who was murdered will take us. So they took us. So I'd never been there before, and police person was driving, but I directed. Well, they directed, and I just said, "What?" It's all in the word, isn't it? Medium. It's just the middleman. But I let my gran and the person that was murdered speak through me to the family, and as you know, I don't know what was said then, but apparently they got some really good information.
So when you said you could see it, is it kind of like remote viewing, or is it actually remote viewing?
I wish I could tell you. It's like, if I say to you now, can you get a vision of a clear white vase with 4 daffodils in it? You've got that mental image, yeah?
Yep, I do now.
Okay. So imagine someone saying, I want you to clear your mind and just think of this person's name for a couple of days, couple of weeks. I want you to concentrate on them, and then I can come back and ask you questions. You just talk like I am now, and it's like having a very vivid daydream. If you start thinking about what you've got to say, you're not saying the truth.
So it's like a spiritual download.
Probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, that makes sense. But not. So let's say someone who's interested to learn to do what you do, and they don't what they call have the talent, or they're not born into it, so they have to work harder to achieve those results, or to do what is easy for spiritual mediums like yourself to do what's easy for you is hard for them. What are some tips for them to be able to get to almost your level or at your level?
Dead easy. Don't think with this. Think with your soul.
Yeah.
How many times does everybody on the face of the planet say, I wish I'd listened to me gut? That's your soul talking. Let your soul talk. Just let it go. First couple of times you're going to do it, you're going to get all kinds come through, and you could be babbling a load of nonsense. But the more you concentrate, you know yourself, clear your energy, bring your positive energy in, make sure that you're connected, because everything, when I start an event or I'm working with someone on a serious level, outside, shoes off, on the grass, feet shoulder width apart, shoulders back, relax your tongue from the roof of your mouth, breathe from your solar plexus, light up your chakras. And then what I ask people to do is grow roots. And as those roots go into the ground, we're going to fill them with light. And we bring it up the right leg and we take it down into the left leg. So everything is positive flowing in, and everything that is negative is going back into the ground, because everything that was, everything that is, and everything that is still yet to be are all connected. This earth is unique. You can't take anything off it. You can put it in space, but it's still going to come back. And that is exactly the same as with spiritual energy. Time is our concept. We see it as a linear line, but in essence, it's like a cake, and we could pick it up, turn it that way, squash it. So learning that we don't know a lot gives us more room to grow and to learn. But if we close ourselves off and think, well, this is what science is saying, this is what Stephen Hawking is saying, this is what Einstein is saying, you're wrong, then we're never going to be open to that energy. How many people have walked into a room, and even if people are sat there and they're looking relaxed, you know they've had an arc, you know they've had a fight, because you can still feel that energy. Explain it to somebody. You can't. So take that and magnify it 1,000-fold. But what I can say is, anyone that wants to learn to be a spiritual medium, don't go to hospital. Graveyard, yeah, great. They're dead.
Well, you go to the hospital, they may lock you up in a padded room.
Oh, no, not so much that. Just the fact that there's so many spirit there. And when one realizes, hang about, they can feel, acknowledge, see, then you've got loads.
No, I was thinking like,
it's horrible.
No, I was thinking like, don't go to the hospital and try to like tell people that you speak to ghosts, because if I were to go in, if if I went in the hospital and I said I'm a spiritualist, I believe in fairies, and I talk to fairies, they would be like, "Come here, come with us, sir. Let's take you somewhere where you'll be with plenty of fairies."
No. I've had extensive surgery. So for the people that are watching now, it's all been gynae, it's all been endometriosis, blah, blah, yawn. Okay, so I've had 37 surgeries to date. So I know the gynae team well. So when I had the big op that you know of in 2016,
yeah,
as you know, I nearly died. So we won't go into that one. But anyway,
yeah,
they should have had me in, is it high dependency, not intensive care, but the next one. But I talked my way into the women's because, Anyway, I had the hematoma, as you know, and they couldn't take me down to do surgery because it would have killed me. So they had to treat it conservatively, and it was a bit for 9 weeks, wasn't it? So the night they brought the intensive care team to me, because Arrow Park Hospital, the women's is a separate building, to get me to the main one, they'd have had to go down into the bowels and underneath, the car park, if you like, and it took them too long. It was easier to bring the equipment to me. So at this point, I can't even turn my head away from the fan, let alone speak. But there was a nurse sat on the end of my bed, and every time my eyes were going, she kept on flicking the sole of my foot. Avril, stay with me. Her name was Moira. She had really thick steel curls. But what struck me as odd was she had a paper hat on. And I don't remember seeing those paper hats on the nurses since... Probably when I had Kaylee, and she's 34. So yeah. I pointed because I couldn't really speak. My arm was sort of up here because of all the drips. And she just said, "Oh, I'm agency." So I never thought anything of it. Anyway, you fast forward a couple of days. She was there every night. And then as I got better and I started talking, she disappeared. And Teresa come in one morning to see how I was doing. She's one of the HCAs, Teresa. Hi, Teresa, if you're watching this. She probably is. She said, "Who are you talking to?" And I went, "You know what? That Moira." And she just went, "Whoop." She didn't say anything else. She went, blah, 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 and Frog marched out the ward. So I'm sort of sitting there looking at her and Leslie, the staff nurse, like, what was that all about? And Leslie went, "Are you a witch?" And I went, "What?" Anyway, Alison, the sister, the woman in red, the big boss from the ward, comes waddling in. "Hiya, Avril." And she brings a photograph of when they opened the women's in 1982. Bad that I remember that. The Queen opened it. Anyway, there's this photograph of all the staff stood outside the old paper hats. And she said, "Where's Moira on there?" And I went, "There she is." That's her. What did she say? So I said what she'd said. And Alison went, "She's usually only seen by people that don't last the night."
Wow.
So periodically, every year, January, I go to one of the nurses' houses and they all have a group work, spiritual work together. So they know. Speak to nurses, speak to anyone that works in hospitals. They'll tell you what we do is the truth.
I believe you. Oh, yeah, for sure. I believe you 100%. So
yeah, they say it too often.
So listen, if you still got time, I want to ask you about, you were talking about how no matter what you put in space, they'll eventually come back to Earth, which is, I know you can launch past Earth and all that stuff, but you mean like the gravity of everything comes back down, especially the Earth, everything like as far as energy, it's malleable. You can smush it and it opens. So when it comes to time, and you said time similar to that energy, are there people, in your opinion, that can manipulate time?
Do you know what? That is something me and my friend were talking about a couple of weeks ago. I don't know. I know where you're coming from, because when you're a kid and you're on holiday and you're away for 2 weeks, the first week takes forever and the second week goes like that. So I get what you're saying.
Yes.
So if we were someone waiting to go on holiday in 2 days' time, the holiday of a lifetime, those 2 days would take a month. If we were someone on death row waiting to go for our last breath, that's going to take 5 minutes. So I think that concept of time is secular to the individual. Because I keep trying to say this to me mate Nina, and she can't get it. I'm wearing black and my hair is pink. Well, it looks a bit orangey in this light, but it's pink. So we know this is pink, but you could be looking at my pink and I could be looking at the colour of your shirt. And I know the colour of your shirt's like a rose. It looks rose to me on my phone. And you know this is like a rose pink. But to my eyes, your pink could really be what you see as blue. But because you know that as your pink, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're all looking at the same colour and we're giving it a name, but it could be a different colour to each individual's eyes. Because we've got to go away and know him, because yellow is yellow, but when I look at yellow, it could be green or purple or like mauve with no green hues whatsoever. But because that's always been green, we all know it's green, but it could be blue, purple, yellow. You know, we can only go by what we know as a person. We can't know what other people see, what other people hear.
So basically we can only go by on what's our own perceptions of perceived reality. So, but what I mean is, are there people out there with like time machines that is making it so obvious? That's what we call the Mandela effect, where we remember something being one way and now it's not anymore, even though we know for sure.
Like Looney Tunes, because I remember when they changed the spelling from tune to tune, because I remember watching it on the telly and my dad saying, oh, they've Americanized it, sorry. And then now they're saying they never did it, but they clearly did. So have we all leaped into a different universe? Is it Sliders? Do you remember that? Are you old enough?
The Sliders?
It's the program Sliders.
I used to watch that all the time as a kid, yeah. Yeah,
could be like that. We wouldn't know, would we? We just don't know. I don't think you're old enough, but I remember the Tiananmen Square incident. You can Google
videos. I've seen videos. Right.
They're telling you now that guy was taken off. They fucking ran him over. They ran him over on live TV. Excuse my French. I swore then. I was 11. Sorry, yeah. They ran him over. I was 11, and it was on the 6 o'clock news. So I was 11, so it was 1983. So live news then, it took them a couple of minutes to go back to the doodah blokey in the television screen, because the fella that was doing the weather, all his clouds fell off, Michael Fish. Things you remember. But we watched that guy get squashed like a bug, because they said, I remember the tank trying to go round him with his 2 shopping bags, and in the end they just ran him over. But if you look that up now, they'll tell you that he was taken off to a safe location and his mental health was sorted. No, it wasn't. So
these are just my thoughts right here. I'm wondering if it's a psyop.
I was just about to say, are we having Mandela effect, or are we being gaslighted?
I think it's gaslighting, because I think it's a psyop to make us think there is something happening when there's not. Kind of like those drones. The government knows what the drones are.
You've literally just taken the word right out of my mouth. Is this the next one? Is this Ukrainian-Russian war all about introducing us to aliens? Because all of a sudden the United States have gone, actually, yeah, we were lying to you. There is. Anybody who's been a sailor or served in the forces, we all know something's a bit anomalous in the water. Everybody knows it. And it would make a lot of sense to me that there is another civilization that looks at us with a lot of disdain.
Yeah, breakaway civilization.
Because we are gaslit to not be spiritual.
Yeah.
The more they can fluoridate the pineal gland. What is it? I mean, I'm not really up with all the tin hat theories, but I did have a good dig during lockdown, as you know, because obviously the 2 books were written in tandem with Sarah England because of my astral work as well. But I just feel like we were all being gaslit, and it was more to see how malleable we are as a population.
Yeah.
To just be led and told this is how you think. And everyone was forgetting that there's a spiritual aspect to all this. But now, I decided about 3 weeks ago to just Google what was life like 100 years ago. Well, you didn't see straight clouds off the planes that stay for hours blocking the sunlight. If you stood outside in the summer to talk to your neighbour, you'd have been hard pressed to hear yourself over the birds. You wouldn't have been able to drive from mine on the Wirral to London without stopping about 9 million times to clear the bugs off your windscreen. I could probably drive to London and back without stopping once. So I know what I'm saying sounds really sort of physical, but if we've done this much damage to the physical earth in the last 100 years, since the Second World War, the First World War, if you like, when they decided that the rich people shouldn't really be rich and the poor people shouldn't really be poor. Well, the people that control it, all they did was switch it all up. Everyone's got to have internet. Everyone's got to have the latest phone. Everyone's got to follow the latest fashion. Everyone's got to have this car, that car. You must have an electric car because it's safer for the planet. So why haven't they put a dynamo on it? I mean, to be fair, would that not make perfect sense to you? I was a kid. I used to put a dynamo on my bike. The faster the pedal, the lighter my brake got. The brighter my light got, sorry, back to front. So they're saying to us, you've got to buy these electric cars, but you've got to pay to plug them in. Stick a fucking dynamo on it. I'm a dynamo. I work my own power. I'm not influenced by the others. Do you turn your internet off at night? I know we're told don't turn your Wi-Fi off, but I do.
No, I usually leave it on.
No, try for 2 weeks. Just turn your Wi-Fi router off overnight and tell me how your sleeping pattern goes. You'll dream better, and you'll be able to go astral better.
Well, can we tell the people, or tell the viewers, what is the name of your Facebook page?
My spiritual page, Avril Spiritual Medium, and I think it's a photograph of me with the parrot on my shoulder.
Okay. Do you have any more socials, or is that the only one right now?
No, I'm afraid that's the only one right now because, as you know, I've got a lot going on, but I will have to learn how to use other socials and develop a website at some point. But I need to sell this place and move first, and then every time I think I've got the time to sit down and start doing something with that, I get yanked into another case or something. So, yeah, the one walking all the way into the back just to grab a drink out of my drinks fridge.
Oh, that's okay. But let me let you to it. I know you're tired, and thank you